Hey everyone, Magic Sword here, and we're going to be looking at Paladin right now. Now we should technically be looking at Mage, but that's a little longer and scheduling, so we're going to start with Blessed Goods, which is a 1 mana Paladin spell, because we love 1 mana Paladin spells that aren't secrets. It allows you to discover a secret, weapon, or Divine Shield minion. So as with how these, discover from 3 different kinds things have always worked. You will be offered 1 secret, 1 weapon, 1 Divine Shield minion. This is a pretty normal feeling card. 1 mana Discover is kind of to be expected. Generally, when we see these cards, our first question is, why don't you just run that thing, right? Um, so being able to run more premium Divine Shield minions functionally by running this card is going to be pretty key to making that weapon work, the tool, right? The Jewel Maker's kit or whatever. So, in that sense, it's good. In another sense, you can get that kit. You can also get, which is really interesting here, they have listed in the related cards section, they have Sphere of Sapience listed. I don't know why they did that, and then a new fate as well. That seems like an interesting inclusion. Although, I guess anything that discovers a weapon now will discover Sphere of Sapience. It's just very strange to me that they put that in there. I don't know. Maybe they're hinting at something. Maybe they want us to run it. Who knows? So, I mean, this is just such a normal feeling card that it can probably kind of fit into anything as like one of the weaker cards in the deck. But I'm not super excited about it. It's not the sexiest card, but it is functional. It's okay. It might fill out a deck. Who knows? So our next new card is City Tax. So 2 mana, tradable, right? So that's always tradable. Automatically makes something like way more playable because you can always trade it away if you don't need it right then. But it is lifesteal, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. So if you are playing against uh, a big druid or a priest, and you're like, I do not need this sort of board clear, and you just pop it back in your deck, right? If you are playing against aggro, you want to aggressively mulligan for it and try to find it, right? So it's sort of that double stabilization effect where you deal 1 damage to all enemies and then use that life steal as well. Now, you might be looking at this compared to that lash thing that priest has. It's 2 damage to all minions, or 1 damage to all minions for 2 mana. And that seems like a downside. And it's like, well, it's kind of like a side grade when you consider lifesteal. So that's kind of the argument I would make there. But dealing 1 damage to all enemy minions for 2 is with big upside, both in the form of tradable and lifesteal, is nothing to sneeze at. And it's really interesting to me that Paladin of all classes is the one to get this. So it's a good card. I don't know if it fits Paladin necessarily. I think that's the big issue here. I don't know if Paladin needs this, right? Usually you maintain board control by smacking stuff with your weapons and by value trading buffed up minions. I don't know if Paladin wants this card necessarily. Our other new card here, Noble Mount. It's the mount for Paladin, of course. 2 mana, give a minion +1/+1 and Divine Shield. When it dies, summon a Warhorse, and the Warhorse token is actually not listed here. Oopsie. But we can assume that it's a 1/1 with Divine Shield. So that is huge for your Divine Shield weapon thing, right? All Divine Shield synergies, anything like that. I think this is going to see play for sure. It's just a nice buff. Um, Compare it to the 2 mana 3/2 minion that can give something Divine Shield. And it's like, well, this gives those stats plus Divine Shield, and then it gives the stats and a Divine Shield again on a sticky body. Paladin loves sticky bodies, right? Death rattles that summon new minions because it's just another buff target, right? So this sort of mount, I think mounts work their best when they're cheapest, right? Of course, in more expensive ones, you get more stats. You get like functionally double the value all the time. But um, I think the cheaper mounts seem to be better on their face, in my opinion. So I'm actually pretty excited for this. In most paladin decks, it feels like it fits most known paladin archetypes, right? So kind of looking forward to this one. Next, we have Alliance Bannerman. So this is a pretty normal one. It's kind of got those hand buff mechanics. I think back in the day, this would have been like let's roll back to Gadget Sand. This would have been 3 mana 2/2, draw a minion, give it +1/+1. This is the same thing, but give minions in your hand +1/+1, right? So we've come a long way since then, and I still don't know if this is enough. It definitely, if you recall, we have a couple of hand buff synergies unique to Paladin. Um, but I don't know if this is enough. Hand buff is historically pretty weak. Things with Rush have made that better, hence Rush Warrior. And of course, First Blade of Rin gains Rush if you hand buff it. So that's kind of the secret sauce there. But my faith has not fully been restored in hand buff, even in the wake of Rush Warrior being, a top tier deck. Even with that, I don't know if I trust this for Paladin. Catacomb Guard. So this is another really good hand buff one, right? Because 3 mana 1/4, lifesteal. Paladin's been getting some good lifesteal tools here. We have one more as well that we want to look at, but this deals damage equal to its attack to an enemy minion. So if you don't buff it, it's a little it's like that 2/1 that deals 1 with lifesteal, right? Not very impressive. If you buff it even once, it becomes way, way better. Same with First Blade of Rin, right? I feel like a lot of, this will be a point in favor of hand buff for Paladin. A lot of hand buff things, the problem is they need a lot of stats to be good. Paladin, you really just need one tick, and it increases the functionality greatly, right? First Blade of Rin literally just needs that one tick to be a great card, and this as a 2/5 or even a 2/4 if you just buff the attack. I don't know if that's possible. It's way better. I mean, 3 mana 2/4 deal 2 with lifesteal, right? It's a bigger body with 4 health, and you want your lifesteal guys to stick around. So this is setting up for some sort of more controlling Paladin, contrasted with the Quest, of course, which is like the exact opposite. It's full on. It's almost like we're rocking back to odd Paladin, right? So I of course prefer that aggro style with the divine shields and all the 1-drops, but I think this might make it worth trying. I don't think it'll be good, but Catacomb Guard and Alliance Bannerman and First Blade of Rin might be worth trying in a package together, just to see. And of course the Prismatic with all the divine shield synergies as well, right? So there might be just enough ways to hand buff that this might be worth trying. I don't think it's going to be great. We have Lightbringer's Hammer, which is very straightforward, just like most weapons are. 3 mana 3/2, can't attack heroes, it has lifesteal. What can I say other than this is a great tool for a mid-range or more controlling type Paladin, where you just say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna whack-a-mole. I'm gonna play whack-a-mole with your minions and kill anything you put down, and not really suffer much of a penalty because it has lifesteal, right? If there were some way to buff weapons in Paladin, that would be great, but whatever. So 3 mana 3/2, just whack, and it's fine. It's a good card. Might get edged out by other weapons. Paladin has a lot of weapon choices right now, but 3 mana 3/2, standard with lifesteal, pretty good. Yeah, this'll weapon competition is just so hot in Paladin. I don't want to say if it'll definitely see play. People will definitely try it. How about that? People will try to make it see play. But if it gets edged out just barely, I wouldn't be surprised. So there's First Blade of Rin again, but Highlord Fordragon. So this is really cool. This is that sort of divine shield synergy hand buff shenanigans that I was looking for. I think this is the issue I was talking about before, where like a lot of hand buffing is like, oh, I'm gonna give you big stats. I'm gonna give you really big stats, which is basically saying you need to sacrifice some tempo now for more tempo later. Well, that type of hand buffing I think doesn't work. I think the small incremental buffs, like we saw, that are enabled by First Blade of Rin, by Prismatic, by Catacomb Guard, and currently in Rush Warrior, how they have just like a 2 mana spell that's like, yeah, give everything +1/+2, 3 even, right? That sort of like small incremental stuff where you have the ability to generate a bunch of minions. That's kind of where hand buff shines. This, I think, if you're running all that other stuff, if all that other stuff is viable on its own, this becomes an auto include. It becomes kind of like a win more card, right? But if that other stuff isn't viable on its own, this doesn't rise to the occasion. This doesn't bring everything else up with it. It needs those other things to be successful independently, I think. Of course, Fordragon himself has Divine Shield, so you're kind of guaranteed a proc on the ability. Kind of guaranteed. There are a lot of ways to just flat out remove something, flat out kill it without touching it. Lots of spells like that, lots of effects that we'll see later too. So, not really sure if that's the way to go with it. Like I said, I don't think this makes the archetype. I think it improves it just enough, right? If the archetype isn't even like tier 2 without this card, it's not going to get there with it. So, yeah, that's pretty much it with Paladin here. I think that we kind of see like two things here with we see Divine Shield hand buff and we see 1-drop Paladin. There's no reason there can't be a little bit of overlap there, right? Because a lot of there are a couple 1-drops with Divine Shield, right? But overall, I would say that you're probably looking at those as two separate archetypes. So go ahead and tell me in the comments below which you think is the better of the two. I'm, of course, in favor of the quest version, all the 1-drops. If you have a good argument for Divine Shield hand buff, I want to see it because it's a cool concept. I just have been burned by hand buff so much that I don't know if I can trust it anymore. So go ahead and tell me about that in the comments below. Leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you later.